IPv6 multicast address. In this video, I'm going to talk about IPv6 multicast address. You know that in IPv6, we don't have class of IP address. For example, in IPv4, we are using class D for multicast, but in IPv6, we don't use class of IP addresses. Because of that, we can't use class of IP address for example, identifying a IPv6 multicast address. Now, the question is how we can identify a multicast address. Look at here. In IPv6, all of multicast addresses should start with FF. Okay, you know that in IPv6 we have 32 characters. Okay, and between every 4 characters means for example 16 bits, we should use a colon. Okay, this is an IPv6 address, 8 hexed, first, second, third, and so on. Okay, we have 8 hexed. If in the first hexed, in the first and the second character, we have FF, we use FF. This means that this is an IPv6 multicast address. And maybe you see this notation, for example, in books, FF00 /8. What does this mean? Look at here. You know that double colon is a tool for compression, and this IP address is equal with the FF00 :00070. Okay, 7 hexed 0, and now we have for example 7 hexed 0 and then FF00. We can compress all of these zeros to a double colon. You know it. Okay, and Y/8, what does this mean? This means that 8 bits of this IP address is equal with FF. You know that, for example, this IP address FF quad 0 has 16 bits, quad 1, then again quad 1, quad 0, quad 0. Okay, and when we are using /8, this means that in IPv6 multicast address, the first bit's 1. Okay, /8 means the first bit is equal to this IP address, and you can see that in the first 8 bits we are using 1. If it's better to, for example, consider a multicast IPv6 address in hex notation, okay, it's not necessary to think or write in binary format. You can use the hex notation. You know that in hex notation we have 32 characters, and if in the first and second character you see double F, this means that this is an IPv6 multicast address, and this is the, for example, identifier of all of IPv6 multicast address. Now, you know that in IPv6 address, for example, if we have x1 and then x2 and then x3 and then x4 in the first hex step, x1 and x2 is equal to F. This means that every IPv6 address in 2 first characters has, for example, F. But after that, we can use x3, the third character, and x4, the fourth character, for identifying the type of multicast IPv6 multicast address. Let me explain this feature. Look at here. First, x3. x3 is used for example, if this IPv6 multicast address is a temporary multicast address or permanent, x3 can be set to 0 or 1. Okay, if it's set to 0 means quad 0 in hexadecimal notation, and if x3 is 1, this means that we are using 0001, okay, in the binary, for example. Now, if you are using x3 with 0 value, this means that this is a permanent IPv6 multicast address. Means that this IPv6 address reserved for a special usage. Let me to show you. For example, you know that in IPv4 we are using 224.0.0.5 for OSPF, okay? In IPv6 for the OSPF version 3, in OSPF, this is OSPF version 2, and then for OSPF v3, we are using FF, means multicast, okay? Then look at here, 0 to $5. I will explain these parts in the next video, in the next part of this videos, but for now, only I want to consider this character x3. x3, as you can see, is 0. Why? Because this multicast address reserved from the INA only for OSPF v3. This means this IPv6 multicast address is permanent. Okay, permanent multicast address means this address reserved only for one application. For example, another example, for example, for EIGRP v4, EIGRP for IPv4, we are using 224.0.0.10, okay, in IPv4. But in EIGRP v6, we are using FF, means multicast, again 0 to $A. This means that 0 means this IPv6 multicast address is reserved only for EIGRP6. But for example, assume you are using an application in your company. You should use, for example, you need a IPv6 multicast address. You can use this IP address, FF1 to $B. This means that the 1 means that this IP address is temporary and it's not reserved for a application from for example from INA. X3, if x3 is 1, this means that this IP address, this multicast IP address, is temporary and it is not reserved for a for example an application or some other tools. So important, temporary. Okay, that's it. For example, one application. And don't forget, if you want to use an IP address with the third character 0, you should give that IP address from the INA. You can't assign an IP address with the x30. It's not correct. Okay, that's it. X3 means this IPv6 address is permanent or temporary. And also we are using X4, the fourth character. X4 is a character for identifying the scope of this multicast IPv6 address. Scope. What is the scope? Let me to talk about the scope, but don't forget, in IPv6 multicast address, only the first hextet is important. Means the first two characters should be set to FF because this is the identifier of multicast IPv6 address. The third character is also important. You know that X3 is 0 if 0 means permanent IPv6 address, and if X3 is 1 means temporary IPv6 address. This is important. And also X4 is important, but other part of IPv6 address can be set to any value. And only the first hextet is important. Very good. Now let me to explain the scope. Look at this picture. Look at here. Here we have a company. Our company has, for example, a network here. This network connected with router R1 to router R2. And then our company has a branch, and we connected to our branch here with the MPLS VPN. And also we have an internet connection and connecting to other branches. Assume that this is the, for example, branch 1, this is B1, and in branch 1, here is branch 1. In branch 1, we have two network, two, for example, segment. This is the first segment and this is the second segment. And also we have the, for example, branch 2. This is the branch 2 connected with to us with the MPLS. And also we have branch 3 connected with us over the, for example, internet. This is our company. Okay. Assume that we are using in this company a multicast application. Assume, for example, here we have a camera. Look at here. Here we have a camera.